Hi everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher and we're doing lesson number 3. We are still on panel number 1 and we're doing shape B. A quick reminder, there is no hurry. If you are only now gathering your materials, don't worry. These videos have all been taped in advance. There's no rush. Everybody gets to work at your own pace. There's no deadline. You haven't missed anything. If you want to binge watch these videos and go straight through and see what I've done, that's great. If you want to do them as you stitch along, that's great too. There's no rush. There's no deadline. You're not behind. These videos will remain up. They're not going anywhere. They are here for anyone who's purchased the design. So let's get started on our shape B. I'm working on shape B and I have my 3 circles in neutral colors. I'm not worrying that they're not exactly this color. I'm using them from my scraps and they are 5/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, and 7/8 of an inch. And I'm going to whip stitch them down with my Alana thread and a number 24 chenille. I'm leaving an opening because I'll be stuffing them. All right, so I'm leaving that little bit open. I'm not going to tie my thread off. I'm actually just going to anchor it over here so it's out of the way, and I'm going to get my polyfill. I like using this tool. This is actually for appliquing, but I love this little flat bit. It's perfect for inserting in here and getting that stuffing in. So I'm just taking a little bit of my stuffing. I start with just a little bit at first. I'm going to stuff these with varying degrees of thickness, so they're not all going to be really densely filled, but a couple of them will be. So for instance, this one, I'm going to stuff pretty well. All right, so I'm going to whip stitch the rest of this down. So there it is, stuffed down. I'm going to whip stitch my other 2 circles. Here's my second one. This is the 3/4 inch. Just going to whip stitch this opening down. I didn't stuff it quite as much as the other one. All right, so here are my 3 shapes. They're stuffed and whip stitched down. This one and this one are pretty densely packed, and this one a little less so. 40 cast on drizzles in my silk and pearl straw flower in and around the bullion drizzles that I did with the beads. Do another one right here. Continuing along with my whipped woven circle, and I'm keeping these, when I stitch between the 2 legs, I am keeping my stitch somewhat relaxed in that I'm not pulling, because I don't want these legs to start pulling together. I want them to keep their shape as they continue down the dome of this shape. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can change the color so that you have a stripe, or you can just continue going with the same color as I am. The variegation on this color is subtle, but it's pretty. In the instructions, I write to do this first and the drizzle stitch after. And the reason is because it gets very difficult to weave this with those drizzle stitches already in place. But while I was designing this, I wasn't sure that I was going to do a whipped woven, and so I was keeping my options open. I had thought that I might do a kind of crosshatch with couching over the dome, but I wasn't sure, and I wanted to see what the drizzles looked like nestled at the top before I did anything. And once they were there, I thought, no, I'll do a whipped woven. Alright, so I've finished my whipped woven circle, and then I just did some colonial knots, kind of a cluster of them right here, and then just sort of strewn them out in a little cluster of, I think, 5 here. Now I'm going to bring in some other colors. I'm using my Oriental linen. This is Wart Frog and a number 1 Milner's. I'm going to do a series of cast-on bouillons right here. At the bottom, I'm going to cover this sort of bottom left area. Do 10 and see how that looks. I'm thinking of lichens, so I'm trying to replicate some of the colors of lichen, which can be very colorful. But for this, I'm doing it in this kind of green. I may throw in some meadowgrass, Oriental linen meadowgrass in here. Okay, this one's 12. So it's a cluster of 5 cast-on bouillons with between 8 and 12 wraps each. I'm doing a couple of 2-wrap French knots in the Oriental linen, just kind of strewing them out from the whipped woven circle. Okay, I'm using meadowgrass, and I'm just going to do a couple more of these cast-on bouillons right here. right, I'm using my olive branch Aurora and a number 1 Milner's. I did a couple of single cast on drizzles, regular drizzles, and I'm going to do some bouillon drizzles. I'm just going to do a whole variety of different drizzles here, as well as 2-wrap French knots. So this is going to be a pretty short one because I have almost no thread left. So this is an 8 cast on regular drizzle. If you have thread heaven or something like that, it can help with the threading of this. I'm going to change my thread and get another bit of thread, but I think I'm going to come in with a different color. I think I'm going to do 2 different colors in here, doing the same thing. Cast on, a single cast on drizzle, a regular drizzle, a bouillon drizzle, just to shake things up. All right, so I'm going to do a bouillon drizzle here. It's 18. The big thing here is getting this to thread up again. May have to use a different needle. Let's see if I can do this on a bouillon knot needle instead. 14, 16. See how I'm holding that bouillon with my thumb and forefinger and my thumb and index finger. There we go. By the way, I'll just show this to you. I often work from a photograph. If I'm really, like, I can't figure out what I'm doing or what I should do, or if I'm thinking about colors. So I just have this photo near me, and then like these right here, those remind me of bouillon drizzles. And then these are like more like a regular drizzle, and then this could either be a bead or a cast on. This I think would be nice as a fly stitch, which I might incorporate in there. So I just use whatever I can to give me ideas. I don't want to stay too closely to them because, I'm not trying to replicate the photo. I'm just using it as an idea for colors and texture. I may do a number 15 Milner's only because it's really challenging to keep threading this. The problem with the 15 Milner's is it's so big that it's hard to get through. So you're just kind of left with not a lot of options here. I know you're not supposed to. This is a wrap, but I'm using a 15 and 18 chenille. And let's just see how that works. Because I'm keeping my French knots so loose, it doesn't really matter. If I was keeping them super tight, then a chenille wouldn't work at all, and I'd really have to have a Milner's. But sometimes if you're doing a really kind of loose, organic looking French knot, then chenille's fine. The bigger point here is to just do a kind of random covering. That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to cover this little shape, not so densely, but just lay down a foundation of this color before I switch to, I'm going to use a different green, I'm going to use some color, I'm going to add a variety of different threads and thread types to give it that kind of really textural look to it. I have a little outcropping here of different kinds of drizzle. I think I'll do one more in here. All right, I'm using my pond scum, silk and pearl pond scum, and I did 3 little drizzle stitches, and I'm doing some 2-wrap French knots, and I'll probably do a couple more clusters, or at least one more cluster of the drizzles. I may add to this cluster. I definitely need my pliers to get through that stuffing because it's pretty densely packed in there. This is a bouillon knot needle. I'm going to put a couple of French knots in here. So there's my little rock with all my little threads. I'm using my Seagrass Stuart Gold and a 24 chenille, and I'm going to do an open buttonhole filler stitch in the round all over this dome. This is my 3/4 inch. As with any filler stitch, you're going to do a back stitch around the base of this circle. I'm not going to do my back stitch so small because I want it to be a little bit lacy looking. I don't want it to be so dense that you can't see the wool underneath, because I want to be able to do some things on top. All right, so for the open buttonhole filler stitch, if you are right-handed, you will go clockwise. You'll take your stitch here. You'll make sure your thread is underneath. If you're left-handed, you may feel more comfortable going counterclockwise, in which case you're going to I like to hold my thread with my thumb and put your needle in the stitch below and go around. I'm not going to pull these very tightly. I want them to be somewhat loose, a little lacy, maybe even looking. I'm doing this open buttonhole filler stitch in the round, which means I'm going around and around in a circle as opposed to back and forth in lines going across. So I don't know if you can see, but I've decreased a couple of times in here. Like right there, I'm going to decrease again. So I've decreased a couple of times in here. Kind of been doing every other. So I'm doing every other stitch here as I go around. And now I'm going to just go center and anchor my thread down. So there's my little open buttonhole filler stitch covering this dome. I'm not going to do anything with this for now. I'm going to leave it and I'm going to move on to my next shape. So we have now finished shape B, and the next video will be shape C. Take whatever time you need. Refer to these videos. They're here. They are meant to be helpful. Please don't feel rushed. You should be having fun. If it's not fun, we need to reassess so that you can get back to fun. If you'd like to leave me comments, please do. Tell me where you are in your process. How's it going? I love hearing from you. Don't forget to click that like button. Even though it's unlisted, it still helps me in my rankings on YouTube. Until next time, we'll keep stitching together.